So we started February and talking about um, the Reiki levels that are taught in classes. And many of you are already familiar with it. Many of you have been working in the Reiki levels for a long time. And so you have a good understanding. But we find that a lot of times people have quite a few questions about some of the just different traditions and lineages about the different levels of Reiki. So last week we talked about Reiki 1 and Reiki 2 and the idea that, it really that gives you the foundation and the beginning process of the how-to with Reiki. And for people that might want to be a practitioner, and also people that really want Reiki for themselves or friends and family. And so to clarify this week also, I'm always very aware that when we use the words Reiki practice, that does not always mean a Reiki business. So people can have a Reiki practice and the way that you personally work with Reiki and not have a Reiki business. A person who has a Reiki business will still have a Reiki practice. So those two always go together because as a Reiki business, you are considering your practices, how you work with Reiki, the meaning of it to you, kind of the things that you talk about Reiki and how you describe it. And a lot of times, of course, that is defining it to the people that you are speaking to. In the Reiki classes, I get a lot of that, like, how do I explain it all? And of course, that is going to be unique for you. How I explain it typically has quite a bit of a spiritual shamanic influence with working with spirit guides and on a spiritual level. Although I also very much, particularly because of how Robyn views Reiki, that I very much consider it as the levels of consciousness too. And the energies are frequencies. They are also biofields, electromagnetic fields, creation energies, universal energies. So there's so many different ways of speaking about it that really you will find your way. I did write an article called Introducing Reiki to Medical Personnel that I think can be very helpful, just simply for those of you that are trying to describe Reiki to people that are, not sure at all what it is, and helping to give you some language that may be beneficial. Otherwise, of course, the languaging of what Reiki is going to come from what Reiki is to you and how you might speak of that to another person. There's also a historical basis for having how you speak Reiki, or how you talk about Reiki being unique for you. And if you look at the history of Reiki and the evolution of it, Usui Sensei was practicing a very spiritual style of Reiki. He was Buddhist and Shinto. And so his languaging around what Reiki would be is one way. Dr. Hayashi was practicing Reiki as a medical practice, so he was speaking of it in a particular way. Mrs. Takata was speaking of Reiki in a way that would work in a Western world. And then even after that, we see through the evolution that people have always described Reiki differently. So now taking it to the levels of Reiki, when a person is taking Reiki 1 and 2, the class that they take, the teacher they have, will also have some of the descriptions of what Reiki is, where did it come from, how does it work, And then the understanding of Reiki is an energy, and then you learn tools and techniques in how to work with that energy. So things like the hand placements, etc. And a lot of that depends on which lineage you are studying. And the lineages vary. There are many different lineages of Reiki, and many of the lineages teach a variety of techniques to work with the Reiki energy. So, for instance, if you take a Reiki master class with one teacher, you may have different techniques that you are taught in that class than you are with another teacher. The particular lineage that we are working with, Robyn and I, and our Reiki lifestyle team, is the Usui Holy Fire 3 World Peace Reiki and Karuna Reiki. And so, I think the important thing is that none of it is a better than. All of it is based on that internal guidance of the lineages that you are called to, or the teacher that you are called to. And sometimes that just happens through serendipity, where you just pick something and it ends up that, of course, it has been an inner guidance orchestrated and universal syncing up of how that works and matches you with the right teacher. Sometimes it'll even feel like, oh, I picked the wrong teacher or the wrong lineage, and you're not really quite satisfied with it. And it causes you to go and, find another teacher or another lineage that is more of a match for you. Again, it's not a better than, it's just a matter of what you personally feel called to. So taking that to the discussion about a Reiki masterclass and a Karuna Reiki masterclass. So in the Reiki masterclasses, depending on the lineage that you studied with, you may find that in your lineage, you are taught, the masterclass might be a Reiki Master 3A or Reiki 3A, which typically means you receive the Usui Master Symbol, DKM, and you receive that as an attunement, but you are not necessarily attuned to the level of teaching. That comes to the next level in that lineage. So you would take 3A for first, and then you would take the next level of Reiki Master, which would be the teacher. Some of the classes and what I was originally trained in, or my original training was the more of the Mysticata Reiki Alliance techniques and styles of Reiki Master. Then when I met William Rand and studied with him, then I also, of course, at that point started working with the Usui Tibetan Reiki lineage. That was back in 2003. So in that lineage, and many of you are still working in that, in the, not, I don't mean to say still, but that is your lineage, is the Usui Tibetan lineage. And in that lineage, it is called Reiki ART Master. So one of the days is called Reiki ART, standing for Advanced Reiki Techniques. And then the next 2 days is the masterclass, where it teaches you how to teach Reiki. So typically in a masterclass, you are going to receive an attunement to a master symbol, and that master symbol is going to empower you to also teach Reiki to others. And in our lineage that we teach with the Usui Holy Fire 3 World Peace Reiki, in that lineage, it's a 3-day class. And in that class, you receive the master symbol for the Usui master symbol, which is DKM. And you also receive the Holy Fire master symbol. And so that's the lineage, is Usui, because we work with the Usui symbols, the first three from Reiki 1 and 2, the power symbol, mental, emotional, and distance symbol, and the Usui master symbol. So all the traditional Usui symbols. And then in this lineage, we receive the attunement to holy fire. Now, in this lineage, we also call the attunement an ignition. And the reason is that the attunement is a new style of attunement. Well, it doesn't feel new anymore because it came in 2014. So we've been working with it a long time. But previously, in the lineage I was originally taught, and then also the lineage that the ART master, the Usui Tibetan lineage, the attunements were given with a hands-on style. So the Reiki master brings the energy in through their crown, it goes through their heart, out their arms and hands, and then is attuned to the student through physically using hand placements in the back, in the front, in the back, and in the front through a whole process of attunement. So then when Holy Fire came in, there was a Holy Fire instructed William Rand to do a new style of attunement, which is called an ignition. And the difference with that is it's no longer hands-on. It is done through a short guided meditation, and then the energy, rather than coming through the Reiki teacher, now goes directly to the student. So it's no longer going through any of my energy. The attunement is happening directly with the student. So in that particular class, and in all of the Reiki classes, Reiki master classes, if you're getting a full length of training with it, you are actually being taught different techniques and tools to work with these higher frequencies of Reiki. Now, not all people want to formally teach that receive Reiki, and this goes back to the idea that you may have a Reiki practice, but you are not necessarily going to have a Reiki business and formally teach. Perhaps you need to be able to pass on Reiki attunements to others because you are in a particular situation where that other person might need Reiki for their, they're not, trying to receive Reiki training, they just need it for their personal life. And you may be passing it along that way, or you may be giving attunements to family members, friends, etc. And so you adapt your teaching to that. Now, sometimes as a Reiki master, I actually can give attunements to people or ignitions to people without actually giving them a certificate. So it may be that I am passing on the energy of Reiki for them for a personal reason, but it's not teaching them to teach or be a practitioner. It's just for them, for themselves, or maybe for a family member. And there's a historical basis for that, because we go back again to Usui Sensei. He attuned over 2,000 people in the 4 years he was alive. He had 20 students that were his Shihan students, that were where they were in the in-depth training of Reiki, which is different than, I'm sure, now here we are today talking about the earthquake in Turkey. Well, he was in that similar situation in the Kyoto earthquake in 1920, or Tokyo earthquake in 1923, and 140,000 people died. So he was actually giving Reiki attunements and passing Reiki on to people to help them. And in fact, understanding the attunements, going to the historical basis, It's one of the things to understand about the Reiki energy. Usui is the one who actually created the attunement to the Reiki energy. Previously to Usui, people worked with Reiki already. The word Reiki means the energy of it, the life force energy of it. And so it was actually a year after he received Reiki on Mount Kurama that he developed the attunement method and realized that he could connect people to the energy. So now fast forward to where we are today, because of course today we are working with Reiki in the 21st century, and we can see that it still has the same foundation. Right now, we can support people and learning that we can do that at a distance with this, incredible tragedy and earthquake in Turkey and other things that are going on. There's a long list, the Ohio spill, et cetera. So now going back to the master classes, again, there is a difference in whether you are planning to teach Reiki formally. Now, personally, when I originally received Reiki and my Reiki master training back in 2000 from my very first teacher, I only got about 3 hours of training for Reiki 1 and 2, and then about 3 hours of training for Reiki master. And so I worked with my teacher individually. So I did get some good skills with it, but I also felt that I didn't know what I wanted to know to be as professional as I could be. And I was absolutely immediately compelled to teach it. I was like, I have to share this with the world. It was just this internal have to do this. And so when I received it, I knew I needed to know more. And that's when I went and studied with William Rand. And that's when I learned Reiki Master and took the Karuna Reiki Master class. So if you are going to teach and you want to give people the skills that they need, I really encourage you to work with a lineage that has an outline. For instance, we have in this lineage, all the manuals have very specific outlines, and the manuals have the content of what goes with the outline. So if you decide that you want to be in either teach Reiki to others, or you want to be more professional, find a lineage that has a good quality manual, outlines, and a teaching method that give you the tools you need to feel confident teaching. The next thing that I will tell you about that is that the classes are not just for teaching. The classes are absolutely, and the energies and what you learn in them are absolutely for personal development and spiritual expansion, if that's your calling, whatever that means to you. And I would say probably the majority of people are taking some of these higher levels of the Reiki classes for personal development. And then the next level is, of course, if you want to be professional with it. But the lineages that have good teaching materials and also teach you how to teach your way is kind of my recommendation, because what your students care about is that you are being authentic and sincere, and that you bring your heart to your time with them and to your teaching with them. I always tell my master students who are going to teach, we always have, a teaching section in the class about how to teach and what to teach. And my most important advice for any of you is to understand that your students aren't there for you to know everything, have everything perfect, make sure all of your stuff is perfect, and that you can do everything perfectly. They are there to learn Reiki with you, to learn what the energy is about for them. And so you just being authentic, bringing in your own perception of it, sharing with them authentically, sincerely, and from the heart is actually what matters. And that's why if you are within a structure or a system that has a structure that makes it easy to follow, like an outline, like a manual that matches the outline, it really allows you to just be in your own words and your own way. And I remember when I first started teaching, I'd get super nervous. I'm not nervous now, but hopefully after 25 years. But anyway, the other thing I would say is that sometimes people feel like they need to have like a certain number of students in their classes. I have learned the circle is always divinely ordered. And sometimes you have one student, sometimes you have 10, sometimes you have more than that, and sometimes you have 3. And for myself, I don't worry about whether it's an even number or an odd number or how many or who. I just observe who shows up and how the class is divinely ordered. And the other interesting piece of that is when you teach, you find that the questions people ask vary by the divinely ordered circle. So the interest of the students that show up is how the flow of the class can go and the topics of discussion that occur. So a master class, if you are studying, taking a master class, the things that you want to look for with a teacher is, again, authenticity, sincerity, just that, feeling of, okay, I resonate with this person. And then also I will say sometimes you may not, and that's okay too. And that's always part of the process. And so allow yourself for that to be okay, even as you're observing it, or even as you're feeling like, oh, this isn't a match for me. Just understand it can be part of the process. And sometimes it's leading you to the direction you want to go. It's all a path. So you're looking for a teacher that you resonate with, and also that they have kind of a, the quality of the materials that go with it. I say that a little carefully because my first teacher, I didn't get any materials. I got a folder of maybe 3 handouts, and that was it. And they were photocopied from something else, which we actually, have in our code of ethics, is that if you're going to just do handouts, they need to be your own, or that you have copyright permission to use them. But that's my recommendation. If you do think you're going to be professional with it, then I think it is beneficial to make sure that your teacher is also showing you kind of the pathway to that. Doesn't mean they have to be the most professional teacher in the world, but if they can show you the pathway to find what you are looking for. So the master class and the energy of it, I can see that we're at time. So, we're going to keep talking about this subject next week. We'll go ahead and talk about the Karuna Reiki master class and kind of what that's about. The master class that I've been speaking about this whole time, in our lineage, you are receiving the energy of the Usui master symbol. And that energy is just that connection with the earth and the connection above, and unifying that right in the center. A lot of times it's defined in a very earth-like way of the chakras, really balancing your chakras. When I first started working with the energy of DKM, what I realized is that a lot of times what it did was really helped people feel more at home being on the earth. And Susan Pease Bannett, a colleague, defines it as earth adjustment disorder, where a lot of people feel really kind of out of order with, being on the earth. Like, what am I doing here anyway? And not really understanding or feeling a sense of belonging. And that was the one thing I would say that was the first thing that I saw as a practitioner and also as a teacher with that Usui master symbol, is it really helping people to have a sense of belonging in their own body and in their life, and heal the level of loneliness. The other energy that we work with in this lineage is the Holy Fire Master symbol, and that is the one that was given to William Rand in 2014, and asked him if he would share it. And we've been working with it since. And the Holy Fire Master energy for me has really brought that home, of that unification of my human spirit and my divine spirit, and recognizing that it is my divine spirit's intention to be in my human spirit and human nature. And I think originally I thought that the energy was about like going somewhere else and being able to be in that perception of the divine heavens somewhere else. And what I would have to say that I have discovered with it is that next level of actually being connected to my authentic spirit, my human spirit, and my divine spirit, and recognizing that it's one spirit. I am one unit, and healing the sense of separation in that, and the belief in separation. So I have come to understand that the idea that we are separate from our own spirit, separate from our soul, or separate from the earth is really a belief. And I believe that it is one of the main things that Holy Fire is trying to teach us, and that it's all more simple than we think. That we don't have to do all the things there are to do to connect to ourselves, to connect to the divinity in the earth around us, the ordinary in the earth around us. Understand that I'm still going to have human consciousness, even if my perceptions have reached higher levels of consciousness. I still have human feelings. I still can experience my humanity. I can experience in this moment the empathy and the grief for all of the people that are really in difficult situations right now. I can also be in the empathy and the empowerment of the people who are in, these innovative places right now. And I can be self-aware of where I am in this moment. And it's like I say, I'm very aware of like the earth and what is this place anyway, and what are we doing here, and what is it? And then also learning to be comfortable in the mystery of it, that there's just going to be a lot of it that I don't know, But what I do know right now is this is where I am. I am in my body. I'm talking to all of you. I'm having this life experience in this moment. And I am most comfortable if I just be okay with this is where I am, even when the times can be difficult. And understanding it's, it it is where I am right now. So anyway, those are just some of the energies. There's always so little time. That's why we have 3 days to talk about all of this in a master class, because there's so much to talk about. There's techniques to learn, there's practices to do, there's different things to know, and then our own personal development in the mix of it all. And then finally, I'm going to finish up with saying that this part of it, when you decide to teach Reiki, you are always still in the energy with it with your students. So even though you are facilitating, for you, you are in that continual state of that development, that personal development that occurs when you're engaging in this Reiki energy and inviting it in these powerful ways. So as the teacher, it's still always for you. You're never different than the divinely ordered circle that you're with. So if it's something that you're thinking about, you can kind of just listen around, find out where you're guided. Sometimes you're guided to the class to take the lineage that's a match for you through convenience. Sometimes it's like, I can do this right now on this weekend, so that's the one I'm picking. And I have that happen a lot with my students. They'll pop in and say, and sometimes people take Reiki that have never even had a session or know anything about it. They just heard the word, the weekend worked for them, and they're going to do it. And so I always feel like that's divine appointment, their internal guidance, sharing with them, here's the spot, here's the path, here's the first place, here's the first step, here's the next step. So anyway, we'll keep talking about this all month, and just kind of giving some more insight into the different Reiki levels, and how they work, why they work, and some of the energies of them.